Okay, we get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavatveshini. नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृततुहे नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचानूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यः मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः. So we are almost in the exactly the middle of Bhagavad Gita with this shlokas that we are doing now. And it is amazing how these things are planned, I guess, by Bhagavan to have some of the most important shloka right in the middle. And what I mean by that is today, hopefully, we will go through the most famous shloka, which you are all very, very familiar when you go to Avantika, which is Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Paryupasate. That shloka is like almost considered to be the most middle portion of Bhagavad Gita. So let's see how we can get to that particular shloka, which is really the most beautiful shloka here. And in our reflection time today, I was thinking that, as much as we are goal oriented and everything, making God as our goal is a very important step in our life. In fact, it is the most important step. And in order to make that as a most important step, how do we really define this entity called God in our lives? So I thought we can have a short discussion about that today. And whoever wants to speak up, please, like I said, this is again the whole purpose of studying Bhagavad Gita, the whole purpose of our life, the whole purpose of us studying all the Shastras, all that sort of culminates in this aspect of who this entity God is, So any discussion, any thoughts?
Hari Om, the most, this is the simplest thing that I can think of is God is the omnipotent, omniscient, He's the all pervading Brahman, God in the Nirguna form. and in Saguna form, he's Krishna, he's Rama, or any other Ishta Devata that we can think of, our own, to our us content, whoever our Ishta Devata is, that is God. That is how.
Uh-huh. Good. Good, very nice. I love the enthusiasm and the complete I can see your whole body reverberating with that beauty of, this aspect of God, right? That's how it has to be. Like, he has to bring us so much of joy and contentment. And you could see that reverberating in everything that Suvarna was saying right now, whether it is in Nishkama form or in the form of the highest level of our own self, right? The human being, if you look at it, the highest self, that is what you just echoed in the words of, when you use Krishna, you use Rama, very nice. Any other thoughts that comes to your mind?
Same Suvarna covered everything. I think he's consciousness who's everywhere. He's Par Brahman. So it's the
Mhm.
same thing. She did a great job by saying that.
Uh-huh. But
And
I
then
think we also need to bring that aspect of God closer to us, you know,
he, yeah,
like
he,
when Suvarna explained that he is that omniscient, omnipotent, that
Mhm.
of course gave this idea of he's everywhere and he is the source of everything. He is that aspect, you said omniscient, omnipotent, and then, so all that is, of course, it almost seems like he is outside of us,
So
right?
he's in and through every
In and
being,
through
every
everything,
us, and
including me,
every,
myself.
yeah.
Correct. So, what does that do to us? Once I recognize that this is who God is, and this is his nature or her or it nature, what does that do to us? What is the transformation? How does it affect us?
I mean, the way I look at it is, the moment we recognize this, the, like you were saying, the God, this the consciousness principle, or God, Brahman, is in each and every one of us, in every form and everything that we see, feel, hear, everything, there is God. For us to be at that state where we can say, I am one, there is no duality. For that to happen, I think, for me, what I think is purity of mind and purity of mind. There is
Correct.
no likes, dislikes, there's no pace of opposites, there's nothing, there's just a calmness that's just there, love,
Right.
calmness, and purity. I think that would be my uh I would like to get that, uh,
Right.
achieve that, but and trying my hard, but not there yet. But I think when I say, what is it that we are trying to understand here, is not something that is outside of us. It is just that we are digging deep into ourselves and making sure that we clear the clutter from our own self. Not,
Right.
it's not something outside. It's cleaning up the garbage from our own head, our own mind, our own heart, all the negativities. It, some of the positives also, it's like that golden chain, right? We use the
Right.
example of golden chain. Oh, I am so good, I am so that, I'm so that. That is also, we have to break all the shackles, be it a
Mhm.
golden chain or be it an iron chain. We have to break. That is what I think is
Right. Beautiful. Anything more to add to what Suvarna? I think she covered quite a bit on the transformation, which is, if you hit the nail on the head, it is the purity of the mind, right? It ultimately gives you that purity of mind. It allows you to, and using that gold example that you just gave, It allows you to really see the essence of everything, not all the different forms. The minute I think that it is in the form of a gold or of a chain or a bangle, immediately the various designs, the various so many things, the mind gets into the judgment state. So the idea is to purify. Very beautifully said. So it's really giving you the ability to grasp at the correct knowledge of who that God is. That God is the essence of everything. And that is actually the reason for bringing this topic again and again, and especially in relation to ninth chapter, is really in ninth chapter, he focuses so much starting with the Nirguna Brahman, when he says, they are in me, I'm not in them, and those verses 3 to 4. And then from there on, going to the level of Ishvara, that Nirguna Brahman, taking the aspect of the Saguna Brahman in the form of Ishvara. And again, going back to what Suvarna was saying, is in the form of Rama, Krishna, who is that Ishvara. It gives us an ability to focus on a form which is just so beautiful, so perfect. So now, once we have that aspect of that God in front of us, then being that particular God's devotee is actually not a matter of, choosing the right idol to worship, nor is it even going to the right temple. Any temple, you see that Lord in a form. It's a Devi temple, it's a Vishnu temple, it's Shiva temple. Everything, just gives you that ability to see that. In fact, I would say it is not even being trying to be a member of any organization. It could be Chinmaya Mission, it could be Ramakrishna Mission, it could be, Bharatiya Temple, anything. It doesn't matter what organization. It doesn't even matter at the time of even what kind of clothes am I wearing. Am I an Indian? Am I, any religion, any caste, anything. It just brings you that sense of an acceptance of everything. It is actually, at the end of the day, just trying to understand who is that God principle. Once I know who the God principle, just allowing my mind, my thoughts, everything to focus on that God. And through every action that I do in this world, we have this in Bhagavatam, the Navavidha Bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Pujanam, Archanam. Anything and everything I do is only for that God. Anything and everybody who I see in front of me, whether it's a beggar, whether it is my own family, whether it is anybody, I see God in everyone. So very beautiful. I just wanted to have that kind of a thought as we progress through understanding the shlokas today. So once I understand that who is God, then I come to recognize that Lord with the form, that is this embodied Lord. And in all these, so shlokas, each one of them were pointing towards it in the previous ones. And in 11, 12, and this one, basically, again, it goes on and on so that it is a reality check for us. And that is where Krishna constantly will bring us back into explaining, okay, if you are getting more materially focused or anything, he kind of brings us back by explaining, well, that is not how you recognize me. You recognize me in this form, right? So then in all these shlokas, which we had covered, of course, last week also went through the same slide, but the whole idea is in these shlokas of 14 through 19, this idea of bhakti is explained. And there is just a little bit of, again, a reiteration of what bhakti is and what are the three kinds of bhakti. We will go through that as well. So in 14 through in 19, which each one of these shlokas, he talks about who are those people. Krishna doesn't mince words by now. He's not kind at all. He calls those people as foolish people who do not see that form of the Lord. So if we see, anything kind of quote unquote negative happening in the world, which of course, at a very high level, we may say that is also meant to happen in the Prakriti, Uh, that all is mainly because of people whose attention are focused more upon the material objects, getting the thing into materialism, and that leads to all the sorrows which they go through, and in turn, which gets imparted to other people. All that, are those, he calls those people as this Mudaha, are those people who do not know that higher being as the great Lord of all beings. So that's how he describes here. And then in Shloka 12, again, he talks about those people whose attention is on all these desires due to delusion, moghasha, and who then indulge in those actions, whose minds are always with all these useless knowledge, he says, And I'm just laughing a little bit because in today's world, I mean, if you're not careful, just this week, a couple of these incidents that happened with regard to somebody being nominated for the highest form of Carnatic music award. I don't know if you had heard about this T.M. Krishna's thing, which is going on. Anyway, I just used this word because the controversy is all connected to that. So all that is, at the level at which we are discussing here, right? At the Bhagavad Gita part of it, they are actually useless knowledge, because unnecessarily that pulls our mind into who's right, who's wrong, all this. So again, Bhagavad Gita kind of pulls you back into, today this might controversy will be there, tomorrow something else will be there, all this, but allowing us to focus more on what the highest truth is, and having this knowledge. Matter of fact, I think it's just what I wanted to point out, even in the midst of all these things that you hear, you try to, what should I say, not try to judge anybody. You try to pull yourself out of it and see the best of what is there. The knowledge really helps you to have a balanced view, or not necessarily even balanced view, but the correct view, I would say, So then the question, this shloka is from 13 to 19, almost 14 to 19. He starts to describe about those people uh, who really take that as support. So, for example, today with these news that goes around, we take a lot of support in, not just at one time it was news which was um, uh, something maybe different from, say, the philosophical views, but then it went to a lot of things called fake news, and now we are into a mode of deep fake news. What is happening, So again and again, the need of Bhagavad Gita is so great, I feel, because Bhagavad Gita is the refuge, is the support, and that is what, it's ashritaha. So great people, they take refuge only in this knowledge. And that knowledge, which is, avyayam, knowing that it can withstand not just a test of time, but it is always, it has neither birth nor death, nothing, it is that kind of knowledge. So Mahatmanaha, those great people, they depend upon this knowledge. So those Mahatmas, they worship me with a mind devoted to nothing else but understanding that everything is nothing but that consciousness. So who are those kind of devotees? All these beautiful words, which again and again, just reading and studying each one of these words, puts your mind into that state of calmness, that state of purity, So 14th is about Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantascha Vrataha Namasyantyascha Mam Bhaktya Nitya Yukta Upasate. Nitya Yukta, no matter what happens, they're ever steadfast. Then Jnana Yagnena Chapyanye Yajanto Mam Upasate Ekatvena Pratatvena Bahuda Vishvatomukam. Not only do they see people in one, but they also see thing in everything, so Bahuda Vishwato Mukam. And they are Jnana Yajna, everything for them is this worship, this sacrifice of, knowledge, as they say. Everything, that's how they lead their lives. And then go on, he brings it even more closer to us, the knowledge, to say that, that Lord is nothing but is there in each and every action. So aham krituhu yajnaha swadaha aushadam. I'm in that herb. I'm the mantra. I'm the butter. So all this we saw. Then he goes on to describe three different relations, not only, from a relationship we can point out, but also more philosophical, which is not only am I the father, mother, but when he talks about pitahamaha, pitamaha is, he's talking about not only am I support, but I'm also beyond that. Here the word pita can also refer to that, the identification with that absolute. And why do we say that? Because the next sentence where he says, I am that Om, I am that absolute knowledge. And then I am the three Vedas. And then, of course, another beautiful shloka where he talks about the 12 indicators. He talks about, I am that the goal, gatihi indicating the goal. I am that bharta, supporter. I am that Lord. I am that Sakshi. And here, when he talks about Sakshi, it is not Sakshi like how we look, we look at things. For example, I may say that, okay, I'm just going to drive to Ann Arbor. I'm just going to, sit in the cafe on the roadside. I'm going to watch people go by. Yes, I'm a witness of that. But our mind immediately, when, I'm sitting there having coffee or something, if some people were to go, immediately our mind wanders away, and kind of, uh, not necessarily judge, but we immediately, our mind gets filled with the forms and everything. But here he's not talking about that. Here he's talking about a witness who is uh, completely unperturbed, completely detached witness, So each word is a very reflective word. It would be good for us to take each word and dissect it and understand it. Okay, when he says gatihi, how do I understand gatihi now? And how should I really understand what the word gati means? And then, like I said, Sakshi, the minute we think about witness, I think about a witness of an accident. That's how the mind goes. That's not how he's looking at it. So to take a mind and give it some amount of exercise. So that is the churning or the mananam that is required when these shlokas are presented to us. Then I am the abode, nivasaha. Again, how do I understand nivasaha today? And what is Bhagavad Gita challenging us? I am the abode, which is here. Think about the word nivasaha is again this example of ocean and the wave. The water of the ocean is the abode for all the waves. Okay. It is the ultimate abode. So too for all of us, when we think about our own lives, which goes through different forms, also different times, we take different roles. Ultimately, where do I go back to? I go back, that part of it. That's how we have to look at the word nivasaha. When I start to think about it, my mind, how is it looking at this word? I keep going back and back and back, like one beautiful example which I read. In fact, I was reading on Facebook, somebody had posted this so nice. It's about two friends. Okay. Probably already, they are maybe 45, 50 years, they're meeting after a long time. and this one friend is telling the other friend, she's saying, my kids have grown up, they're almost out of the house, but when they come back, I worry about, I want to go to the room, I want to clean the room, I want to take care of the food and everything. And then, she's saying about how she gets worked up at this time also. And so the other friend is trying to console her. She tries to tell her, who were you before you became this mother of your two kids? So this lady says, well, I was a wife, Who were you before the wife? Well, I was a young girl waiting to get married. And who were you before that? I know I was a daughter of my father's. Who were you before that? I was a small child. Who were you before that? So I was this carefree young baby, not with, not worried about anything at all. So are you not that even now? What has changed? So the point is, this word nivasaha, I was connecting it to this one simple story, and I was thinking, at the end of the day, who's that place that I go to, Who am I ultimately? So that is the word nivasahas, such beautifully just connects you to. And I think it's when you start reading this Bhagavad Gita and then you see the events happening, or when you read some story like this, I thought it was just so beautiful. Even though we have read like Ramana Maharishi's where he says, go back where you came from. But the simple story of connecting it to our own lives and taking that to connecting to this was something which was beautiful. So, Nivasaha, that abode or that original place from where I came from, where I can go to no matter what. And then Sharanam, of course, I always think about Minu, the surrender principle, Minu. You always bring this, that surrender, just surrender my complete ego. Whoever I think I am, just give it up, you know.
Easier said than done, though.
No, but it's a great reminder, Minu. I always think about what you said on this aspect. There was in one of the classes you shared about that surrender, you know. And then Suhrit, again, friend, who is that true friend? The friend who you can always, I mean, all of them are really friends, we don't give up on our friends, no matter what. So that, again, with this example, what I said about the two women talking to each other, where the friend is, reminding you of that. Then Prabhava Pralaya Sthanam, again, origin, dissolution, and the sustaining part of it, and Nidhanam, Bijam Avyayam. So here the word Bijam Avyayam is different from the seed we talked about before. Typically, a seed is one which gives rise to the whole tree, and then it has already undergone a transformation. But here we are referring to that Lord who is Avyayam, who is completely changeless, imperishable. So just you can see in one shloka, I mean, all these shlokas from 14 to 19, but a few of them are just very powerful meditative words, which, constantly reflecting upon it, thinking about it gives you, great calmness. It just calms your mind down. So that's what we did. And then in shloka 19, which we covered last time, but I just wanted to explain a little more on this aspect is, uh, for us, when we think about this entire world would not be there if not for the sun, right? Whether it's when it is there and when it is not there, both the times, we are reminded, and the interesting thing is, in this word, when he talks about this word existence and non-existence, there is actually for us we never in the Buddhist philosophy, for example, it's called as a nihilist philosophy where uh, they say everything comes from nothing. But in our thing, we never say that there is no such thing as nothing. There is always something. It's just that it's not in front of my eyes. Okay. So even sun, we look at it from the point of its existence. When sun is there, there is a heat. And that's how I recognize it, right? So when it gets extremely hot, we recognize that it is actually that Ishvara that is providing the energy for the sun. And even though we may feel very uncomfortable or something, we have to recognize that that Ishvara in the form of sun is really taking care of all of us, you know, and that is the tapami aham. I am that. If you've forgotten me, if you've forgotten me as God, think about me as the sun who's providing the heat. Then, as much as I'm providing the heat, the idea is if I just keep on providing the heat, there would be no life at all. So this is where the whole idea of withholding and giving, so that's why he's saying aham varsham nigrinhami. I produce the rain when it is needed. I also withhold it when it is not needed, and I send it forth. That is the idea here, he says. So the whole idea again here is that to bring about the understanding of who that Ishvara is. And then he says, I am that immortality and I'm also death. So symbolically, again, he's trying to show that the finite and the infinite nature, death is the finite aspect of it. Again, bringing this example of the waves and the ocean, the waves are finite, they rise, they stay, and then they die. But ultimately, the ocean remains the same, right? So the whole idea is for us to, again, to develop that vision, and that vision he brings about in that next line, which is Sat and Asat. So Sat is, what is Sat is the reality which doesn't go through the three periods of time, whereas Asat is something which goes, which is transient, So just because something I perceive through my senses, it does not automatically become real. And to understand the reality behind in and through everything. So that is how he explains this whole thing. And just a couple of things which I wanted to put in here is, this aspect of Surya Devata. This is said in the Sandhya Vandanam, In Sandhya Vandanam, the whole aspect of sun is brought here. Mitrasya Charni Dritha Shavo Devasyas Sansim, So Satyam, these two mantras are actually said during to glorify the sun god in the Sandhyavanam prayers, which is said in the morning and afternoon, that aspect of it. It's all about really appreciating the glory of sun. So, and that is again bringing about this aspect of the heat. And then here he continues to, of course, say, not only do I give the heat, but I also take care of the fact of water. And this is just a kind of a beautiful verse which says, what is the use of feeding one who's already eaten like that? If the rain happens in the ocean, what is the use? So I try to bring that water closer to you, closer to where you need it. And that is why he says, I withhold and I send send forth the rain whenever that is needed, which we talked about last time, is, giving you that idea, this how science is already there. It's up to us to recognize that science in the nature itself. So our rishis were great scientists. So that whole aspect, I wanted to just kind of review it one more time to explain what is immortality, what is death. And on one hand, of course, it is very relative about death and this, but again, the idea is to recognize that change is death. change is death in the sense the finitude, going from one finitude to another would be considered as death, whereas infinite is the one which is there completely. So it is again bringing to us the idea to recognize that self, which is changeless, which is eternal, and keeping that as the goal, keeping that as the ultimate God, I have to work towards that, And then we explained about Sat existence and inexistence. I am that both existence and existence, non-existence. Again, from a point of view of manifest and non-manifest, For example, without, mud, a pot cannot exist, right? So the pot is the manifestation of the mud. So with this mud, we see the different forms and everything that comes in. So mud can actually claim, I'm the pot of all sizes, shapes, forms. So in that sense, that consciousness is there in both existence and non-existence. So that's why, again, this is another beautiful verse, this shloka number 19, which very meditative again, and really a kind of you can say it's an inspiration for us, when I'm trying to battle a lot of these thoughts on which are all actually, the thoughts are the ones which gives rise to all these forms and things, but to keep reminding myself that I am that immortality, I am that aspect which is beyond this existence and non-existence. So with this, really that whole aspect of meditation upon the form of that consciousness, which is Ishvara, and Ishvara's role in different things was brought out in the shlokas 14 through 19. Now, when we come to shlokas 20 through 29, this aspect of an extension of bhakti is taken, So when we think about bhakti, we think about bhakti in two major kinds. One is uh, bhakti for I have this great devotion to acquire something. And that is called as, sakama. Sakama means with a desire, I have a bhakti. And this other aspect is where I have this bhakti without any desire. So sakama bhakti is something which I'm always has this desire for a kind of what we call as artha, the four purusharthas, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So that artha, which is, all kinds of worldly gains, all kinds of security, which I'm looking for, which or gives me security, that is called as sakama bhakti, right? But again, in chapter 9, we are being pushed towards something to look for what we call as this nishkama bhakti. Nishkama bhakti, which is without any desire for anything. It of course, we start, and this nishkama bhakti, of course, is for the highest goal, which is moksha, right? And to get to this moksha, we start off with, like how Suvarna mentioned earlier, which is a purity of mind. To attain this purity of mind, first I go through this karma yoga part of it. And from there on, I go to this upasana yoga, which is focusing upon that Lord in order to, get more amount of concentration and focus. And of course, all this cannot really happen without having a proper guru, in our lives. So through that, I develop uh, slowly and slowly as to what my real goal is. And so that is what, we are coming to, which is understanding what is Nishkama Bhakti. Whereas the Sakama Bhakti is something where I do it for the sake of something or the other. And so those are the two kinds of bhakti we talked about, are really how we classify the word bhakti. But when we think even this bhakti, we can look at it a little differently as manda bhakti, madhya bhakti, madhyama bhakti, or uttama bhakti, Manda bhakti is where I look at that God to as only a means to achieve what my worldly goals are. Okay, it can be worldly goals, even as lofty as something like praying for my health, praying for my health, or something lower than that, which is praying for my wealth, getting that property, wealth, all that. So I'm using that Lord purely as a means for those kind of goals. So that we call this as a manda bhakti. I do not love God for the sake of God, but I love God only for the sake of getting some benefit or the other. So that is we call as manda bhakti. But then over a period of time, once I'm satisfied with what I have received, I can become more and more mature now and to understand that, this God can actually give me something even more superior than what I'm looking for. So then I kind of get to the next level, which is called as Madhyama Bhakti. And here what happens is I start to look upon God as not just somebody who is giving me things, but I look at God as a sort of a friend, a friend. And not only that, I also start to slowly look at God as somebody who is to reach him, and end by himself. So that is what we call as Madhyama Bhakti. And slowly this starts to purify my mind also. So, and then finally I reach the state of what we call as Uttama Bhakti. Okay. So Uttama Bhakti is, I love God, I recognize that he, she, it, whatever, however we classify as pure love, just pure love, because I recognize that it is the ultimate gati, and there is really nothing more than that aspect of, so these three aspects is what, where we can also look at this bhakti, not just a sakama bhakti or nishkama bhakti, but in the three levels of bhakti itself, how we go. And this is important. The reason I bring this up is because the question always comes, when we think about bhakti, as how, just because I keep going to the temple, am I really that great devotee? It's the attitude with which I approach that Lord, that is what is important. So that is, so with this, he now elaborates on this two type of bhaktas, the Sakama Bhakta and the other person who's Nishkama Bhakta. In last week, we just chanted the two shlokas. We'll just go through it a little more in detail today on the 20 and 21, which talks about the two bhaktas who are, the bhaktas who are wanting some gain out of that, and these people, of course, they can be anywhere in this nature of manda to madhyama bhaktas. So they literally, they believe in God completely. They believe, actually understanding also that if they are in this path, that will put them into a right path where there is, they are, where they're not incurring any sin or anything, but they're not necessarily people who are what we would call as who have renounced life. They believe in actually the game of life. They believe in karma yoga, for example. They believe that if they do good, they will get something good back. Okay. So they are that kind of people. And they do all the rituals, whatever is needed, and they want to, rise up. So they are the people who actually understand the karma kanda of the Vedas. So Trayi Vidya Mam Somapa Puta Papaha. So they are people who, practice, again, because Bhagavad Gita was written at the Vedic times, where, a lot of yagas were performed, a lot of rituals. And in those rituals, you know, um, you had this yajnas, and they believe that when they do these yajnas, the devatas will reward them. So, and here the word soma has to be understood. Some people understand soma as alcohol or something like that. But then in the Vedas, it's clearly said, there is, you don't, uh, what is that, give up alcohol, or, that it's clearly said. So here, soma actually refers to a particular plant, and this plant has this essence or nectar, you may say, which is given at the end of a sacrifice. So it is almost like, how today, when we do certain ritual, we have prasadam, right? So prasadam is given at the end of a ritual. So here, somapa refers to that essence which is given at the end of a person who has actually done certain rituals. So yagni shishtva swargatam prathiyante. So in the Vedas, it is actually said, when you do things, the yajnas, you will actually be transported to a better life. So here, the better life is going to Swarga, you know, just like, we talked about also last time, going to Las Vegas, somebody who has earned enough money now wants to just enjoy it, so he or she goes to Las Vegas and they have a good time, good luxury and everything. So in that sense, but here he's referring to heaven, uh, which is a better life, so to speak. So worship, so he says, Yajna Shishta Swargatim Prathayante, they go to heaven. But then whatever punyam you have done, whatever you have worked hard to get, you go there and then you exhaust it. Then what happens? Question comes is, then what happens, right? So you actually then come back. You come back to the world where you live in. And so he says they reach the world of Indra, and then Ashnanti Divyan Divi Deva Bhogan. You come back to the world that you have, come, you've just gone there. Actually, that's what this shloka says. So such people are people who, they want even more punyam, they want even more wealth, and they want even more sukham even in the earth, you know. So they get all this by going to this. So that's these sakama bhaktis. They do worship for that purpose. But then he says, what happens to those people who have actually now gained those merits? And that is where in this shloka he says, Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punye martya lokam vishanti. So the key thing here is kshine punye. The whatever they have earned, it gets exhausted, right? And then evam trayi dharmam anuprapannaha gata gatam kama kama labante. So it's again like, um, this arrival and departure, and I think Sharda aunty also uses this word, like you come with a baggage, and then you've exhausted everything, in this thing, and then you come back. So it's just the whole thing going again and again and again, so uh, completely, that's the kind of life which for a Sakama Bhakti person, they use they pray, and of course the devatas, Ishvara is very kind. He will give you whatever you want, but then you have to actually at some point give up that also. So here, this is in Mundaka Upanishad, there's a shloka also which says about how samsara is, basically something where you just keep going back and forth. It's you enjoy, you go, and in chemistry in photochemistry, you have this electron, which gets a lot of energy, it goes to a higher state. After some time, it gives up the energy, comes back to a lower state. You have to fall down. And so Trai Dharmam, which is again referring to the people who follow the ritualistic side, the karma kanda portion, they enjoy this worldly pleasures, and they come back after all the punyam has been exhausted. Gata agatam labhante, coming back and forth. So now, I'm not going too much into the details of 21 and 22 because obviously we know that life. We know that life really well. We are looking for something more, we're looking for, tell me what my final goal is. Tell me how I can get out of this cycle of coming and going, right? So that's where this most beautiful shloka of Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, we just chant this. Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, Ye Janah Paryupasate, Ye Janah Paryupasate, Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam, Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam, Yogakshemam Vahamyaham, Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. So he says, so how do you get out of this cycle of just, doing enough punyam to get a finite goal? How do you get out of it? So he says, just change the direction of your goal, right? So think of none other than me. Ananyas Chintayantu Mam, Ananya Bhakti, just keep my goal, that and that alone. So those bhaktas who completely, surrender more and more and more only to me, okay, those are the people who actually are getting out of that rat race. To get out of the rat race, this is the only one, he says. Ye janaha pari upasate. So those people, they worship me and me alone. And then to those who have developed that, I want to use a very simple word, that habit, ultimately anything and everything we do is nothing but a habit. So the reason why we are here again and again is because by sheer force of habit. So how do you get out of the habit is to be able to change the direction on where I am pitching my goal. So such a person who continues through that aspect and who becomes self-controlled, tesham nitya abhiyuktana, nitya, constantly, again and again and again, we have to pull ourselves back from this mundane world in which we are living in, So he says, for such a person who previously, was living, so the difference is previously, previously in the sense he's explaining those people who are living in the world thinking about only their own body, their own, when he says body, their own material goods, okay, and working hard towards that and keeping that as a goal. When you change the goal, guess what? I will take care of that aspect of it. You know, so beautiful. I mean, previously I was working hard thinking that, I have to take care of my own self, my own body, and everything. Now, don't worry. I will actually take that aspect from your thing and I will do everything for you. You know, so this is really, I mean, such a beautiful shloka where so much we can talk about, so many different stories, so many different examples. Um, just this words of, yoga kshema. Yoga, is that aspect which is where you are basically our whole life. Our whole life today is, if you think about it, is focused only on two aspects. Number one is, keep on acquiring. Like we came to US with just one suitcase or two suitcases at the most. After that, what did we do? We kept on acquiring and acquiring and acquiring. Those two suitcases became, I don't know how many suitcases, acquiring. And then the second aspect is, once I've acquired, I want to keep preserving it. I want to hold on to it. I'm afraid what will happen to it, right? Yoga and Kshema. So that is what yoga and Kshema. The early yoga is aspect of acquisition. Kshema is really preservation. This aspect, he says, the Lord is telling us, just change your direction towards me. Once you change that, I will take care of this aspect of it. I mean, the point again is, we are actually capable as a human being to be able to go beyond this yoga and shema of our body. Animals, on the other hand, cannot do that, but we have that ability to do it. So God is saying, just focus on me and I will take care of everything else for you. Don't you want to do that? You know, I'll leave you this with a very beautiful story. I don't, I think, I don't remember whether it was Swami Tejumananda or Swami Ramakrishnananda who mentioned this story about, this yoga and kshema part of it. So there was, there was this great Brahmin, a great Brahmana, who had a lot of faith in the shloka, but lost it one day because, as a Brahmin, of course, he could not, he had a family to take care of. And what he would do is, he would write a lot of bhashya on this, on Bhagavad Gita and many texts. And when it came to this particular shloka, one day, he saw this, he read this verse, and he became very depressed because he could not, he did not have enough money to take care of his family. So what he did was, just he was really sad and depressed, and he tore the page in which he wrote this commentary on the shloka, and he just went out of the house. Then later in the evening, when when he comes home, his wife asked him, it was so nice that you sent this young boy with so much amount of, he brought so much of rice and all the goods for all of us, and we are so happy here. But you know what? I'm really surprised. Why did this boy have this gash on his forehead? And his forehead was bleeding. Why is that? So immediately, the Brahmana was able to recognize that it was actually Ishvara himself who came in the form of this young boy and delivered that food to his wife. And that wound that he had on his forehead is nothing but that mark, he had torn that manuscript or the palm leaf in which he had written, right? So it was It was that wound on his thing, So the whole idea is that we just cannot give up at any point. Have that faith in that Lord. He will take care of my own yoga and my own kshema, and just to continue working, not worrying about this thing. So it was kind of a lesson to that Brahmana about how to continuously focus on, on that higher self. So we'll spend a little more time next week just to dwell on this practical implication of this word yoga and kshema, which is really, really needed for this shloka, And after that, there are again some beautiful shlokas which are coming up. This Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, those shlokas, some most important shlokas of Bhagavad Gita. So we'll do that. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. See you then. See you, everyone.
Thank you.